Good evening and welcome to the Housing Committee. Today is August 24th, 2022. Voting members today, to my right, Gregory Del Rosario, Councilor District C, and online, Councilor at Large, Selena Reyes. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I read the following statement. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of the Housing Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. Reminded that any person who would like to listen or to view this meeting while in progress might either attend in person at the location above or use the following access locations. Facebook, Lawrence City Council page, YouTube, Lawrence City Council page. So, for the Housing Committee, we have one item, and this is item 27722. But before we do that, I would like to ask for a motion for the member of this committee to approve the minute from January 11, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve that item, that minute? There is a motion on the table. Can I hear a second? There is a motion on the table to approve the minutes from January 11, 2022. There is a motion on the table, and I'm looking for a second. There is a motion on the table, properly second. I call the roll call. Councilor Del Rosario? Yes. Councilor Selena Reyes? Yes. Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez, the chair, vote on the affirmative. The motion to approve minutes from January 11, it's approved. So now we have item 27722, which is the disposition of real estate property of 810 Orchard Street. It was put together by Francisco Cirillo, the access officer of the city of Lawrence. This property, it's located at the address of 810 Orchard Street, Lawrence, Mass. The tax map of this property is 191 lot 2. The total area for this property is 3,150 square feet. The deed reference for the property is 15550, and the page is 166. The zone for this location is residential R3. The status is a vacant lot. The assess value for the property is $4,600. The estimated annual taxes for the property is about $52.62. I would like to open the floor to our access officer, Francisco Cirillo. Welcome, name and address for the record.
Good evening. Francisco Cirillo, 824 Riverside Drive, Methuen. With me is Rigoberto, who is one of the deed owners for 12 Archer Street, looking to purchase the lot. They've been keeping the lot clean, and they want to continue using it for parking.
All right. This location is on a residential area, very close to a commercial location. Why do you think parking will be the best fit for the property?
There's no, currently there's not that much parking, especially for his tenants, and that's why, and he's been maintaining the property clean and free of debris for, ¿cuánto tiempo ya? ¿Que ha mantenido la propiedad?
Sí, ¿cómo?
¿Cuánto tiempo lleva manteniendo la propiedad?
Como 12 años llevo viviendo ahí.
12 years.
Okay, so essentially you've been using the property for parking for your tenants?
Yeah.
Okay.
Está tu nombre y la dirección.
Yeah,
Just name and address for the record. Su dirección y su nombre para el record.
mi nombre es Rigoberto Matul López, 12 Archer Street, en Lawrence, Massachusetts.
So it's, does he live in the property?
Vive en la propiedad, ¿verdad?
Sí,
Yes.
yes.
So he's a homeowner occupied that is willing to buy this property, and today we're dealing with the disposition of the property.
Correct.
It is important to recognize that the current program that we're using to do the disposition for this property is a yard sale, what we call a yard sale program. Under that program, the square footage for the property cost
$1.
to the proposed borrower, it costs $1 per square feet. The current price that we looking to sell this property is $3,150. Currently, he's using the property for parking.
For parking.
It is important to recognize that part of the restrictions that the city of Lawrence is putting upon this deed is, some of them are to merge the current property together with the property that he owns, as well as no building is allowed in the future in regard to this lot. Councilors, there is any questions in regard to the disposition for 810 Archer Street? All right, so at this point, anything that we would like to add?
The property's been empty for a while, and this is a great way to put it right back on the tax revenue for the city, once it gets merged to his property.
All right, so we have a set of restrictions here that is gonna be in
Added to the-
combination with the porches. Do you mind going over some of them? We have 7 in total.
We got
I
seven-
mentioned 2 of them.
Right, one is merging the property together with the deed, using it for parking and green space. He cannot build on the property. It has to be, everything has to be done within 30 days after approval, final approval, from the purchase agreement to be signed.
It is important to recognize that part of this sale is to keep up with the property. The city will go eventually to look at the property and make sure that it's been kept up as it was agreed. And it is important that the possible buyer knows about that.
Yep. Recuerda que todo lo que va a tener de acuerdo tiene que estar seguro que mantenga todo como lo dice la ciudad. Y la ciudad siempre va a hacer presiones. Okay?
Okay, está bien.
The last restriction that we have on the deed for this property is that the purchaser must comply with the zoning and building permit rules and regulations to ensure that everything that is being done there is according to the rules and regulations for the building permit of the Massachusetts building permit. Anything that we would like to add to this? At this point, councilors, I'm looking for a motion to send this item to the full council if that's the desire of the committee. All right, there is a motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Can you hear a second? It's properly second. I call the question. I call the roll call. Councilor Del Rosario? Councilor Reyes? Yes. And I vote yes. Now the next step will be to, this item will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation, which now our next meeting will be on the 7th. It's on Wednesday. It's a different, this next meeting will be in a different day. So we definitely would like to see the proposed buyer to here as well in case that the councilors have any other question.
Right. 7 o'clock?
7 p.m., yes. Councilors, and there is no more item at this point, so I'm looking to a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
All right, there is a motion to adjourn. I call the questions. Councilor Celina Reyes? Yes. Councilor Del Rosario?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you so much, and I see you in a minute on the next meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Public Safety Committee. Today is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022. Voting members to my right, Councilor District C, Gregory de Rosario, and online we have Councilor at Large, Selena Reyes. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll read the follow. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that any person who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress might either attend in person at the location above or any of the following access locations: Lawrence City Council Facebook page and Lawrence City Council YouTube page. There is no minute to approve. At this point, we have few items today, but we're going to start with one of the table matters, that is item 16122. Can I get a motion to untable item 16122? All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. I call the roll call. Councilor de Rosario? Yes. Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
And I vote in the affirmative. Item 16122 is the health and safety concerns about the youth substance misuse within the city of Lawrence. It was put together by the Chair, Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez, Councilor Ana Levy, Councilor Selena Reyes, and Councilor de Rosario. Three of the councilors that put this item together are here on this meeting today. I would like to extend the opportunity to the people that are present today to discuss about this so important safety concern that we have about the misuse of substance within the city of Lawrence.
Good evening,
Name and address for the
councilors.
record.
Good evening, councilors. Evelyn Rodriguez, Drug-Free Communities Coordinator for the City of Lawrence, and I work with these amazing youth. I've done so for the past 7.5 years, and they're going to tell you why we're here. I'm going to step aside.
Thank you so much. Just name and address for the record.
Manasseh Siwiniang, 14 Cochrane, Methuen, Massachusetts. Hello, good evening. I'm here on the behalf of LMCC as well as Drug-Free Communities as a program assistant. So we are here to talk to you why it is important to talk about data analysis and collecting data for the city of Lawrence. We need a present-day baseline in order for us to sustain the effects of drug usage within the city of Lawrence. And without it, we can't do any potential work that we need to collect data and analyze it for the good works that we have planned. So I'm gonna put the table on to Jonas Gosado, who's part of our chapter, and he's gonna give an anecdote.
Good evening. Hope everyone having a good day. My name is Jonas Casado,
Address.
104 Olive Ave, Massachusetts. I'm here to tell you guys about my testimony. As me, as a 13-year-old 8th grader, seeing people destroy their lives by misusing substances, this is why we should be able to get surveys to help young adults and young teens before they get addicted and they won't be able to stop themselves. Many children have seen marijuana, tobacco, and more. These adults are using these substances, and these children are being able to see these substances clear as day. Using these substances, the children and their parents are role models. They are growing up to wanting to be their parents, and that's not a good thing. I'll be giving that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Cornelio. I am a LHS alumni as well as a 84 chapter Lawrence leader. Being an LHS alumni, I feel like...
Address for the record.
What was that?
Your address for the record.
Address for the record? 47 Adams Street, Lawrence, Mass. As an LHS alumni and a chapter leader, I've been able to see the full, effect of substance abuse amongst my peers and throughout their high school career in being a chapter leader, as the use of substances has fully crippled their ability for their potential and their scholastic endeavors. they've taken substances to a point where it has become, you know, a regular. They cannot function without the use of substances. And without the proper strategies and resources for them for help, we have been unable to help them, and their ability and their full potential for their scholastic and professional endeavors have been crippled. Therefore, I feel like the data that we can collect with this research for today would be present-day data for a present-day solution for this present-day issue. And with that, I'll pass the table to my fellow friend, Anui Ortiz.
Good evening. My name is Aneldio Ortiz. I live in 6 Birchwood Road, Methuen. And I am also a Lawrence High alumni and a youth advocate. I'm also a former marijuana addict. Given that I am an addict, I know the full lengths of the damages, what these substances do to the human mind. And for example, I was part of this program called Northern Essex Early College Program. And I had a THC pen, and I used to smoke it all the time, and that totally demoralized me, lost my self-confidence, my self-esteem, and also my ability to critically think, especially in a prestigious program as that. I needed my mind, which I lost, given these substance abuses. So since I wasn't putting my full effort to that program, I ended up being removed from that program. And that further induced my lack of self-confidence and my lack of self-esteem. So all these abuses that I used on myself totally just did not do me any good. So I know full well the abuses that these substances do to the human mind, and that's why I think it's better for all of us to get these data points up to date, because the world is changing rapidly, and I think it's just very necessary for the youth. Thank you.
As my colleague was talking about, our present day situations are no longer the same situations as we had in the past. If only they haven't grown to be an immense amount of impact in our city, especially with our youth. If we are able to start researching at a younger age, starting like elementary school even, or middle school, we'll be able to find the origin of the problem. So with that being said, why is the survey data very vital to us? It's the collection of useful information that can help prove the research is for real and it is a need for us. It allows us to analyze the data collected and identify meaningful trends across the population within our community, which helps us provide key resources, evidence-based programming, and a comprehensive strategy across the board, being able to work with other branches of nonprofits that have the same mission as we do, trying to prevent tobacco usage, illicit drug usage, underage drinking, and also just being able to work in hand-to-hand with other programs that have the same mind as us to get that mission aboard. This data will allow us to specify the impoverished detriments that can be determined to target, the enhancement that's needed for our community for the better, all which is equal to meaningful and purposeful and sustainable change. So one thing I want to leave with you guys is that this is a public health issue. This is just not a regular issue. It's known to be as an epidemic. I want you guys to understand that we should take the same precautions as we were able to take with the pandemic that took place in 2020 with COVID-19, just with these illicit drug uses here in Lawrence, Massachusetts. We should be able to care and provide for our family, our community, for our children, because this is where it's hindering us. It's hindering our culture and our future. And if we don't get to them, the drugs will get to them first. Thank you.
To continue what my fellow was just discussing with you all, when data is collected and analyzed, it demonstrates the strength in numbers. It demonstrates the issue in a more sophisticated manner to get a more sophisticated solution. Like multi-million-dollar companies like Amazon, they use data They use contemporary and sophisticated analysis and algorithms to really get to the solution, and why can't we do that for ourselves for this situation at our home? With that, we've been able to see success. Back in 2017, we were able to use a 2013 platform known as SurveyMonkey to find data, and the data was so accurate that allowed us to give us a 4-year grant that gave us capital to allocate to our strategies to solve the issues in the present time, for the past time. Today, we need a new solution, and therefore we need new data, and with new data, we need new capital.
In order to solve this apparent issue, we must identify a problem. We need at least 2,000 participation from different age group, races, and grade levels. In order for us to attain this population, we need cooperation from the LPS superintendent to grant access for students grade 8 to 12. What we have so far, and then we need to help convey the message that we are presented today to the LAE. We have a survey readily available on SurveyMonkey and Quadrants online, being provided in both English and Spanish for our schools.
So the reason we're here, as our youth leaders have mentioned, our last youth risk behavior survey administered in the Lawrence Public Schools was in 2013. We were able to get to some 6th graders and some high schoolers in 2017 with Superintendent Riley's okay. With the change of administration, it's been highly difficult to get into the schools once again and survey our youth, and I can't stress enough how much this problem has just increasingly worsened amongst our youth. We are now having overdoses that aren't being pinpointed or recorded because they're minors and there's nobody taking charge in these need of data collection and data analysis. We need to find a way to communicate the urgency in this matter. We need to find the backing that we need from the leaders in our community to help us get the word and convey the message. We need these surveys. We need our youth to participate in these surveys, and there's no one better than our Lawrence Public School System to get and target the youth population that we need from 6th to 12th grade, because they're starting at a very early age. The more presentations I do within the Lawrence Recreational Department with our young kids, I have kids at the ages of 7 and 8 that know exactly how to mount and dismount a hookah, how to clean it, what it entails, what it takes, what flavors there are available, how it burns, and how long their uncles or parents are smoking. I think our culture, our population, our community is very misinformed of how damaging hookah really is. And they're very misinformed at how damaging secondhand smoke can be for their children, because the more parks I visit, the more people I see smoking hookah right alongside their children. There's nothing more offensive than that to me, which is why I'm so passionate about this matter, and which is why I care to take this to another level. Our young leaders here are intending to have a town hall event where we're going to start informing our community and alarming our community a little more about the dangers that and dangerous trends that are coming along our way and what's really consuming our community. And I would love to have all of your council board members to back us up on this and help us further this cause with the LAE board and the superintendent. Thank you.
Well, I'm impressed, to be honest with you, with the presentation from the youth. Thank you so much. I definitely, I highly appreciate your participation as well of you on this matter. It is extremely important that we actually create awareness of the system abuse or misuse of drugs without without the advice of us of why they need the drugs originally and at the first point. But thank you. Definitely, I appreciate the effort that you guys have put in together on this matter. With that said, I would like to ask you a couple of things. Essentially, you're telling me that in 2016 and 2017 was the last time that you were able to collect data from at the Lawrence Public School?
Yes, correct. It was in 2017. 2016 to 2017, we had one session with a couple of middle schools participating, and then into the fall of 2017, we had some of the high school. They
walk
still
me
weren't a
through-
substantial number, though.
Yeah.
They literally picked a few kids.
So walk me through how that happened. I mean, you get in touch with administration during Riley's administration, and they approved the data collection from the organization, and then you guys went over and did what?
So we spoke to Superintendent Riley, and I can't remember the assistant superintendent at the time. Can't remember her name. But we spoke to both of them, presented our case to both of them, and let them know that they didn't have to pay for the YRBS. We would create it. We would digitalize it so that it's easier done in that manner. Because we had just started, we actually did it in manual paper, so it was handwritten, and then we took the data and analyzed it afterwards. We have a report based on that collection of data for that time, but since then, we sat down with them. They were all for it because they hadn't had something of substance to collect this data since 2013, which was the last youth risk behavior survey administered in our schools. I don't understand why it's not regulated to be done so every other year. Our city isn't even the same since 2013. Our city has evolved since 2013. Do you think drug trends haven't? We have fentanyl in our streets, fentanyl getting into liquefied form in our THC pods that our kids are smoking. That's why they're overdosing. The potency in THC has evolved on another level. So that's why it's affecting our youth the way it is. That's why it's deteriorating them the way it is. Their minds are just everywhere. The mental health issues are increasing. Suicidal ideation is increasing. We need to do something now and start being proactive rather than reactive when the situation is blowing up in our face. You know, I feel like this is the same message I conveyed to them, except it wasn't as harsh because we didn't need it as much as we do now, even more so, with the hookah being so normalized. It's in parties, it's in your backyard, it's in our parks, it's everywhere. So the secondhand smoke, it's exacerbating throughout our community. So now it's like, all right, we need to do another collection of data, and I can't stress enough how it should be normalized. It should be regulated to every 2 years being administered. We put it into quadrants. We're actually putting it into quadrants now. We have it in SurveyMonkey. It takes no longer than 10 minutes to get done. So all it takes is LPS to approve it and give it to their kids. And a lot of times they have, I'm sorry, what is it that you call it? That hour that you guys talked about? Advisory. During advisory, they could take 10 minutes to do it.
Let me ask you a quick question. And I'm pretty sure that they did talk about the confidentiality of the students, they're not releasing any type of information,
Yes.
and any other particular law that protect the students from giving out data that they're not supposed to, at least under their watch. Have you looked into that and ensure that this is not violating any type of law that might forbidden those data to be collected at the Lawrence Public School?
There is no name or address collected. We are collecting age, race, and use, 30-day use. It's the same as a youth risk behavior survey. You don't identify the individual by name or anything else. All you're doing is, I'm a boy, I'm 17, I have used in the last 30 days or have not. I just did a webinar earlier, and the numbers are alarming of the past 30-day uses of cocaine, let alone marijuana. And we all know that the drugs in the streets are all fentanyl-based. There's no real drug anymore. Everything the DEA confiscates is fentanyl or carfentanil-based. Nothing is real out in the streets anymore. So we need to start moving along. And the city of Lawrence is the one city that's the furthest behind in data across the Merrimack Valley.
So you collecting gender, race, and what they have used
Yes,
in the last
past
30 days?
30-day
What else?
usage, current usage, early onset use. So we're focusing on when did you start, how much do you use, how often do you use it, and are there any resources or have there been any resources offered to you? That's our focus. I have an actual visual for you if you'd like to see what it looks like. I printed one out.
By all means.
You can give it to her, sure. In that bag, we also gave you samples of some small things, just a little bit, because we have a large collection of pamphlets and information. But we are giving samples of what we offer the schools and parents. We go to PTOs, we inform meetings. At PTO meetings, we inform parents of the programs we have to offer, the information we offer, support groups we offer, cessation packets or programs that we can connect them to. We work closely with the DEA, and we're trying to get a vape box put in so that kids can willingly throw their vapes in there without being judged, without being looked upon, without, being forced to do it. We want them to have their choice, but we need to educate them as to why it's important for them to make the choice not to use.
The next question will be, because to me, it's a no-brainer. We need to collect this information to be able to serve our youth generation. Is this data available to any other organization that wanted to do the same thing, or are they going to have to do a new assessment?
I work very closely with all of our NPO City of Lawrence organizations and working groups, and we all share our information. This information it's not a Lawrence Public School thing, it's a City of Lawrence issue. So we will share it with We Are Lawrence, we will share it with our city, we will share it with whoever needs it, because everybody needs to see this data, everybody needs to use this data. This is the data that we need to continue bringing money into our community. We have had several grants pass us by, and we can't even look to apply for them because we don't have current data. And this data is necessary for me to continue doing progressive, effective work at a local level. Lots of times we're working based off Massachusetts YRBS. The city of Lawrence does not reflect the state of Massachusetts, nor does the state of Massachusetts reflect the city of Lawrence. We need local level data in order to resolve our local level issues. So in order for me and our youth to make leadership moves here, to make impactful and meaningful and sustainable change here, we need data here.
So this survey that you're passing on, it's from the feds from January 2012. How accurate this is anymore?
It's been revised. It'll say it, like if you open it online, you'll see the revision. They constantly revise it because it was created through the ONDCP, the White House, and the feds. It's just, tacked it that way. But it's revised all the time. And we've given access to Lawrence High when I partnered with them very closely before COVID. They have full access to add, delete any question they want. The last conversation we had, they wanted to add some questions, some gang-related questions. And there was just a lot of concerns because they were worried that if they started asking these types of questions, it would maybe trigger some type of reaction. So they wanted police presence. And I felt a little appalled and hesitant for that because we're supposed to create a relationship with these kids. We're supposed to create a trustworthy rapport. So now I'm going to go in there with cops and criminalize them? I'm sorry, I didn't agree with that. So I said, why don't we work this differently? Why don't we do an assembly? And I can have two of my partner police officers that work with me in our community policing and our community events all the time come in and speak to them as to why we're here and why this is important and how this will help. And then if anything happens, you have the whole SRO team back there. You know what I mean? But I don't think it would exacerbate any type of reaction from them. I think I work with these kids every day. All they need is a little bit of love and attention and some respect given to them so that they can reciprocate it. I don't feel that I need to go in fully charged like that.
Agree. Councilors, there is any question in regard to this so important item? Councilor Rosario?
So the response I got was a very cooperative response from the assistant superintendent, but then very limited. They love the programming and they want it, but they want me to work with ninth graders only. They want me to start at ninth grade and then work my way backwards. Makes no sense. We need to start early on because they're experimenting early on. Kids are starting to use at ages 7 and 8. Our conversations, our parents need to start learning that their conversations need to be had at 8 years old, as early as 7 sometimes. So we need to start early on to create the leadership that we need. By the time they're transferring to high school, they have the confidence that they need to say, no, I don't need that in my life. No, I don't need to use because I know the damage it'll cause me. If we're not informing them early on and equipping them with the tools that they need to be strong enough to stand up against all these environmental factors that they have to face around them every day, how are we going to start when they're already well into it? Does that make sense? You're an avid nicotine smoker. I'm going to go tell you, here, you're going to quit right now, and I'm going to give you this to quit. You're not going to. It's going to take you 13 times before you take that last cigarette and throw it away, correct? It's no sense to me to start when they're already using at an avid point. They're using before, during, and after school. At this point, that's beyond my expertise. At this point, I need people to come in. I need to bring in more resources to help me, which I can do. But let me start here, and I can connect the resources that we need here and in a bigger, impactful way. Because now we need mental health, covered. We need cessation programs, bring them in a more bigger, impactful way. Because if we start talking about having these conversations, and a lot of these kids start coming that they want to quit, guess what? There's going to be a lot of mood swings. There's going to be a lot of changes in these kids because they're going to withdraw. They're going to experience a legit withdrawal. So there's a lot to educate on that as well. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and we can't start in the middle or in the corner.
Is this data that we're talking about is being collected in other communities and it's actually implementing changes that we know of?
Absolutely. If you go into the ONDCP website and you go into the Drug Free Communities website, you will see nationwide, every single drug-free communities has a partnering survey that they utilize in the schools cooperatively from all schools, and they are making change. Because not only can we go and implement our programs in these schools, which I have a 3-tier program created with, the high school would be like the policy changing regulation makers and advocacy workers. So they'd be the youth advocates. The 6th to 8th grade would be our youth ambassadors training or teaching the workshops to our younger 4th, 5th, 6th, 4th and 5th graders with our Samantha Skunk kits that are all age appropriate related, talking about smoking and how it affects the lungs and how it affects an athlete and why it's important not to smoke and to protect your lungs. So we have the programs available. We just need that green light so we can start creating our youth leaders within the school and make this program sustainable, because nobody needs to pay anything. We have our kids in the schools 8 hours a day. They can do the work. They're our leaders. They're our future generation. They're our future leaders. This is their city. Let's make it better for them.
We have our Council President LaPlante here today. I would like to extend the opportunity if you have any questions.
No, thank you, but I'm listening and I'm learning, so thank you so much, and I apologize for being a few minutes late.
Thank you.
Councilor Salinas Reyes, do you have any questions? Well, at this point, I think that we should, I've been taking some notes, and it's been, I mean, terrific in terms of collecting this information from you guys. It is extremely difficult to me to understand that the first time that we collect data, or the most recent data after, before 2016, it was in 2013, which make me worry. I mean, we're relying on data that is very old, at least 5 years old. It could go all the way to 9 years old. At the end of the day, what I would like to see is a collaboration between the Lawrence Public School and probably a couple other organizations that you'll be able to collect information with an organization that is willing to do this type of work and help the kids, which is you guys. To me, the information that you guys are collecting doesn't sound like it violates any type of laws or confidentialities, but it is important that we actually get involved, all the departments at the city level, so we can ensure that anything that is being provided from the kids are going to put them in dangers. I'm pretty sure it's not, but it will be great to have an analysis of and a follow-up meeting with a couple other departments, including the mayor's office. I think that the mayor's office should be involved on this. We officially are gonna request a vote. We're gonna ask for a vote for this committee to send correspondence to the city of Lawrence mayor office to have them look into what we have discussed today, and possibly have a meeting, or most likely ask for a meeting with you and probably part of this committee to ensure that we are on the same page and make sure that the school department, which might be a little difficult to work with right now, since we are, as you all know, on the receivership for the last 12 years about. But at the end of the day, we got to make sure that this type of data is being collected frequently and is being used in a way that is going to help our youth. Doesn't matter the age. Drug use doesn't discriminate against any type of age or any type of race or any type of gender or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, drug use is everywhere at every level of society. And being able to collect that type of information, I believe it will help tremendously to fight and continue the fight against drug use and misuse of drugs for our youth, especially. Councilor Rosario.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, through you. Can we extend an invitation to the Lawrence Public School to come to the next meeting so we can actually hear from them why only 9th graders and what is the reason why we cannot allow this group to, or any group, to get the data that they actually need, and that they also we can bring the mayor's office or anybody from the mayor, and we can all discuss in the next public safety meeting. Then we can all hear the why we're not getting this information out there. Yeah.
Of course, I will entertain a motion to invite the Lawrence Public School to be here in our next meeting.
And should we make a, and I will make that an official motion.
There is a to officially invite the Lawrence Public School to come over to the Public Safety Committee to continue and further out the conversation about item 16122, which is the health and safety concerns about the youth youth substance misuse within the city of Lawrence. And I would like to hear a second to be able to engage into a discussion.
Discussion.
All right, discussion, Councilor LaPlante.
Thank you. Who will be invited from the school department?
I mean, we can collect the information, who they're in contact with, anybody in the health department from the LPS or whoever it's actually getting information. I mean, it have to be somebody in the Lawrence Public School handling this data somehow.
So probably we should invite the superintendent or whoever she believe it's appropriate to send to this discussion.
So another way to tackle this too, we had back in 2016, I think, we had offered training to Lawrence Public Schools staff to do the SBIRT. The SBIRT is also a form of a risk behavior survey. And all they needed to do in return was share the data with us so that we can then analyze it at a local level and then utilize it. That also isn't being shared with us.
That could be part of the discussion once they come over.
Yes, so I would like that to be elaborated on as
Yeah,
well.
as well.
And just to elaborate on the survey, it's like you can't tell who's who because they can do it on their phones, they can do it on their Google Chromebooks. When the data is analyzed through SurveyMonkey or through Quadrants, you can't tell who did it.
Yep, I agree.
So it's completely anonymous.
All right, we have a motion to invite the Lawrence Public School to be able to engage and further up this conversation. There is a motion on the table properly second. There is any other discussions about this? Well, I call the question for the invitation. Councilor De Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Selena Reyes? Yes. Council President LaPlante?
Yes. Yes.
And I vote yes. So we officially invite the Lawrence Public School. Before we continue, I would like to actually invite the mayor's office to engage into the same conversation. Probably they can come over to the safety committee, and further up they can have a conversation just like we have in today on unofficial matters. I will ask for a motion to send correspondence to the mayor's office to engage into discussion for item 16122, as well as come down to the Public Safety Committee next time we meet.
So move.
Any discussion? I call the question. Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So now, I think that another important point to advance this conversation should be to have probably a conversation about confidentiality and the current law to ensure that the conversation and data collection is not violating any type of rules or regulations in terms of confidentiality. And I believe that the best way to analyze that is to have an assessment of the current survey that you guys are presenting to the students, to our city attorney, so they can see and give us an advice legally whether or not we are breaching any type of confidentiality law that allow us to further this conversation. I would like to ask for a motion to send correspondence to the city solicitor, the city attorney, to further review the surveys that we present to the students, and with the main objective of figuring things out in terms of confidentiality and any type of violation, if there's any. I would like to, if that could be in a form of a motion, that would be great.
So move.
Second.
There is a motion on the table, properly second. Any discussion? Since there is none, all those in favor, I'll call the roll call. Councilor Selena Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gregory del Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Plant?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So now we have three different departments: the Lawrence Public School, the mayor's office, and the city solicitor that are possibly be engaged into this conversation. There is any other department that we should engage into this conversation to ensure that that we actually pursued with the data collection that is so important for this matter. All right. Up to this point, we have the city council, the mayor's office, the city solicitor, and the Lawrence Public School that are potentially been discussing this item on the next meeting. We don't have a date for the next meeting yet, but we're definitely going to be scheduling another meeting. And with that said, we have nothing more to discuss on item 160, 122, unless that you want to add anything else.
No, I thank you for your time and thank you for hearing us out, Councilman.
Thank you so much. I will give this back to you. And thank you for sharing this information. At this point, I would like to table item 160, 122.
Motion to table?
Can I hear a second?
Second.
I call a roll call. Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you so much, and we will continue the conversation. Councilors, we have one item in front of us is item 16222, which is an environmental and drainage safety issue at Water Street on the lower section of that of Water Street. Can I get a motion to untable item 26222?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll call the roll call. Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Councilors, we have this item. I put this item on the agenda with the main point of discussing the problem that we have, which become an environmental issue at the lower level of Water Street. If anybody has passed by between 3 to 5, they will know what I'm talking about. Essentially, we have a drainage disposed by a possible company working around there that back up into our sewer system. That creates an awful smell every day of the week. And we have no accountability whatsoever as of who is doing this. And people working around there, they cannot work on a way that is safe because the smell out of the city drainage are not human tolerable. Essentially, we have this issue happening for years, but nothing happened. And lately, the last few years has become worse. With that said, Councilor, I would like to open the conversation about this specific issue. If any one of you would like to discuss this item. Councilor, I would like to send correspondence to the city engineer and the DPW director, the DPW department in general, to come in front of us to discuss this specific issue and seek for a solution for this matter. I would like to If that could be in a form of a motion, I'm gonna highly appreciate it.
So move.
All right, there is a motion to send correspondence to the DPW director and the city engineer in regard to item 260-222. It's properly second. I call the question if it is no questions. Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you, Councilor, for taking the opportunity to review this item. I would like to table item 260-222.
Motion to table 26222.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. I call the roll call. Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Councilor, there is any other items that we would like to discuss today on the Public Safety Committee? I would like to untable item 23922, if possible.
Second.
The syringes program. I call the questions. Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. I would like to send correspondence to the Lawrence Community Health Center, the Greater Lawrence Community Family Health Center, to be here for our next public safety committee meeting.
So move.
Second.
All right, I call the question. Councilor De Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, there is any other items that we would like to discuss today at the public safety? I would like to table item 160-122.
Motion to table 23922. No, 16122.
160-122. There is a motion on the table, properly second. Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Any other items, Councilor, that we would like to discuss today? Sorry, 239, yeah.
Motion to table 23922.
239-22. That was a previous motion. I will call the question again. Councilor De Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Councilors, there is any other item that we'd like to talk about today? Since there is none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in a minute on the next meeting.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Budget and Finance Committee. It is now 7:07. With me, I have Councilor Gregory De Rosario from District C, at-large Councilor Anna Levy, our Vice Chair, Councilor from District D, Giovanni Rodriguez, and myself, Pavel Payano, as Chair. Before we begin, I'd like to read the following. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress may either attend in person here at the chambers, or they can follow us through our Facebook or YouTube page. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Councilors, I see that there are no minutes for approval, so we will move with the agenda. First, we have item 278-22, order to expend grant funds, Eastern Mass Gang and Gun Violence Initiative, $30,000. And we have Director of Support Services, former Councilor Eileen Burnell.
Eileen Burnell, I'm with the Lawrence Police Department. I'm the Director of Support Services over there. We have 5 items on your agenda this evening, and the first one is this request to spend grant funds. It's Eastern Mass Gang and Gun Violence Initiative. This is through the Massachusetts State Police. The state police are awarded federal funds, and they in turn have partner communities, one of which is Lawrence. So our officers can earn overtime working on this in Lawrence. They would obtain federal funds. So basically, you're authorizing us to allow them to use those funds.
Thank you. I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, we get
so
this most years, yeah.
this question is probably going to sound familiar. Can you talk to us about how many hours these monies is accounted for, and also how many individuals end up using it?
So basically, there are about 8 detectives that use this. There's one supervising detective that's a lead, and then I believe he's a sergeant, and there's 7 under him that use these funds. I'm going to give you the exact, I'm going to break this down for you. I apologize. I should have had that number ready for you.
Or if you want, we could send it to you a more
Yeah.
in-depth breakdown if you'd like. Or
That's fine with me.
But it's basically about 600 hours over the course of the grant, and it's spread across 8 different offices.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, any other questions? If there's no other questions, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the... Motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
We now move on to our next item. Item 279-22, order to expand grant funds, PSN grant for Shot Spotter Technology, $95,000.
Thank you, councilors. This item, again, is seeking permission to spend grant funds. We were invited by U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins to apply for this grant. It is to allow us to purchase technology that's commonly known as Shot Spotter, which allows us to detect a gunshot within a 1-mile radius. It's very popular. It's also very expensive. That's why they're giving us the $95,000 fee to get it up and running. But basically, it's federal dollars. We applied through the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security here in the state, but they funnel out the federal dollars down to us as a community.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council with favor recommendation.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. We move on to item 280. Councilor Rodriguez, can we perhaps just switch mics? If Councilor De Rosario can give you his mic, and he can take the one next to him. Can we see if that works? And then I'm left without a mic. Council De Rosario, if you can just check, see if that works. All right, teamwork, guys. We move on to item 280-22, order to expend grant funds FY 2023 Municipal Road Safety MRS Award of $51,057.
Thank you, Council. This is also a grant that we do get annually from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. They call it an MRS, or Municipal Road Safety Grant. And it basically allows us to do a lot of the stuff that you see in your neighborhoods, where we have officers doing road details. And by road details, I don't mean road jobs. I mean traffic enforcement, where they're doing either pedestrian crosswalk stings or they're doing the ticketing of people. And this allows officers to do it on overtime. It is about 200 hours of overtime spread out over 5 different enforcements. So each month they allow us to do a different enforcement. So we'll start in October, we'll do like one in October, one in November, then the winter we don't do them, then February, March, and then usually June and July. So it's state dollars to allow for that.
Thank you. So my question is, I mean, I think it's great, you know, any money that can be allocated and ensuring that we're spending some time in doing traffic stops, I think is very important. But you know, Chief, I think, you know, one of the conversation points that I had with you, I think like on day one, was around this, and it was around the, you know, there's huge issues in Lawrence when it comes to folks speeding, folks not respecting crosswalks, you know, not, you know, sort of caring for pedestrians, you know, the elderly. It's a hot topic among the elderly and folks that are handicapped. As well. It's a conversation point. I know that, you know, 5 years ago, one of the things that we discussed was at the time the police department just wasn't big enough to have a dedicated group that would focus on this. And I know that the department has been very helpful at times when we are, when an issue comes up, that there's officers that, you know, come through a certain street, but it's not something that's like, you know, very consistent. It's for that period of time. And I'm wondering what, you know, this is for overtime, what would it take for Lawrence to move forward to having more sort of like, you know, folks assigned to do these type of stops on a regular basis?
We pretty much have dedicated officers that take care of it falls under community policing, so most of the enforcement is done through them. As you know, the patrol division is very busy with over 70,000 calls a year for service, so very rarely do they have an opportunity to do enforcement. However, they have. They have been a factor up in Mount Vernon and Ferry Street and High Street. During their downtime, we've been trying to get them to be more active. So to get back to the original point, community policing handles most of traffic enforcement. They do a lot of pedestrian crosswalk stings, which are covered underneath these grants. Have been very successful. Essex Street, Merrimack Street is 2 examples of areas that they concentrate on because we get a lot of complaints with such heavy traffic from businesses, the school department, as an example. So to say we do not have a dedicated traffic unit, I guess is correct, but we do have officers almost daily going out and hitting different sections of the city. I have provided some of those documents to you. I could tell you that I've provided more documents to the mayor's office, and I guess I could get, I kind of keep him up to date on the traffic enforcement both in North and South Lawrence. I break it down that way, so it's kind of a quick read about the number of citations per week and per month that are being issued. I think last year we wrote over 8,000 citations, did over 17,000 motor vehicle stops in the city. So they're very active. But, you know, if we wanted to look at expanding the roles of the police department in terms of doing more after the 70,000 calls for service that we talked about, realistically, we'd have to add another 25, 30 police officers here. I think I've spoken on the matter before. A city this size, this population, this call volume, really should have 225 police officers here. That's what Lynn, New Bedford has. Lowell has 250. With that kind of enforcement, that kind of numbers, we really could have a lot more being done here. And it's not just for tickets, it's noise, drinking in public, you know, things like that. We have a smaller gang unit, a smaller drug unit. Both of those could be expanded. Community policing could be expanded. But realistically, I think, you know, the city should really look at, as they're doing now with their details in terms of making sure that salaries are in order. I think that's being a big project that the mayor's office is doing. I think some more focus should be done on how many officers we have in the department. There are some statistics out there by the FBI that they put out, so many officers per so many thousand residents. And in doing the numbers quickly, we should have about 204 officers, from what I understood, based on that ratio. However, when we take into consider the undocumented and what the real population is, I think we're looking more at 224 more officers. So I think we do a lot of work with what we have, but I think we could do more.
220. So how many officers do we have now?
We're budgeted for 167. We currently have 155 on the street, 9 in the academy.
So you're saying that we need 60 more officers?
Correct.
Okay. You know, I wonder if, you know, when we're looking at this, I think I hear you, and it's one of the things that I've heard a lot is that we need more officers on patrol. You know, I'm hearing from a lot of different officers that folks are feeling overwhelmed. So I completely understand that, and I've heard you in the past saying something similar. I guess, you know, I'd be interested. I know we have seen some of the documentation that you've sent to the mayor's office, or some stuff that's been provided to us. I guess it'd be great in the future to get some type of what the strategy is as you guys are doing this stop. If there's a you know, some type of long-term strategy on how those particular stops are going to reduce some of these traffic incidents. But thank you, Chief. Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council with a full recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. We now move on to item 281-22, order to expend grant funds FY 2022 DOJ JAG Award, $47,493.
Thank you, Councilor. Each year, the Department of Justice invites us to apply for a grant award, usually in this, somewhere between the $40,000 to $50,000 range, that we can use on equipment in order to perform law enforcement. It has to be law enforcement-related equipment, and there are some very specific restrictions on what we cannot buy. This year, we were able to increase our fleet of cruisers through your support and the support of Mayor DePena. We bought several new cruisers. We'd like to get one more, and this would just about cover one fully outfitted cruiser between the purchase and then the build-out, the laptop and everything that goes with it. So currently, this is earmarked for one more cruiser, and it's federal dollars that we would be accepting.
Thank you. Councilors, any other questions? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with favor recommendation. It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. We now move on to item 282-22, order to expend grant funds BJIS subaward from UTEC Inc., $300,000.
Yeah, so UTEC Inc. is a local organization. They have offices primarily in Lowell and Haverhill, but we're kind of situated right in the middle of them. They invited us to be a partner with them on this federal grant. They received the award, not us, but the award does allow our offices to perform overtime, and it will allow us to buy some equipment. It awards us $150,000 each year for 2 years. So the vote today, just that you're clear, it's $150,000 per year over 2 years. So for $300,000 total.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right, no more questions.
You have a question? It would be great if at the year point or at the 6-month point, we could get some type of short report, just kind of knowing how things are going.
Yeah.
You know, even an idea of what UTEC is planning on doing in that area. I think, you know, anti-gun, anti-violence, it could be anything. So it'd be interesting kind of hearing what their approach is going to be.
I would just suggest, Counselor, I know that a lot of times you're at the Public Safety Committee, you're looking for different things to inform the committee and yourself and the constituents. Maybe that would be an opportunity to have UTEC come in and explain exactly what it is that they're doing in their program. Just something to consider.
All right, great idea, and the Chair of Public Safety seems to agree with that, so that'd be good to have. Council, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
There's been a motion, it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, the ayes have it. Great, we are moving along. Let me just see if there's anything else. So it looks like you are all set. Thank you so much. All right, yes. Motion 283-22, order to expend grant funds, Lawrence, Mass. In motions, $110,752, put on by Alicia Miller, coordinator from the Mayor's Health Task Force. Good evening.
Good evening, councilors. Alicia Miller's coordinator of the Mayor's Health Task Force, City of Lawrence. So we have been awarded the new round of Lawrence Mass in Motion funds. The funds are dedicated to look at access to healthy food and active living in the community. This year we are charged by DPH to do some more dedicated work with community engagement, looking at target populations. And so we'll be doing a root cause analysis this year, looking at what are some of the factors that affect or impact people's ability to access healthy foods and to be able to use spaces equitably in the community for exercise and active transportation. So this year we're working with, we're contracting with Fertile Ground out of UMass Amherst, who will be leading some of the training for community resident. We're gonna have a resident advisory task force, and they will be helping us to do some of the work with community engagement, leading some of the conversation. And those resident advisory group members will be members that use, or residents that use some of the services within the community. So there will be residents that use the parks for their own recreation with their families, not necessarily for competitive sports. There'll be residents who use different forms of food resources in the community, whether it's SNAP or WIC or whatever it is, but we're looking to engage people who are using or who have those insecurities to help us to do the root cause analysis, because it's really important that we understand what are some of the things that are channeling these insecurities.
Thank you, Ms. So first, I want to say thank you for providing the project overview and scope of work on what you're trying to do. So thank you for providing that information. And also, you know, you're partnering with probably like the best school in Massachusetts. So I'm sure that your project is going to go off well. Councilors, are there any questions?
Yes, I do have questions.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that the people from Amherst, they have the time to travel 2 hours out here to be able to manage this grant.
No, they're not going to be managing the grant. So what we're engaging them to do is to talk. So one of the things that we want to talk about is equity in all of what we're doing, right? So what's the role that equity and race play into our insecurities, whether it's for food or for opportunities to be active. And so that's the conversation that they'll be teaching us to lead and helping us to lead. So we'll be hopefully engaging some of you who are community leaders elected, as well as others in the community, to have those conversations, to understand the role that race and equity plays in food insecurities, in social determinants of health, that kind of conversation.
Well, I'll tell you this much. A lot of us have been struggling to have healthy food and healthy options because the system that we live in, and that's my own experience, the system that we live in, they always tell you this is healthy, but those healthy food doesn't look like what we eat. And a lot of those issues become more problematic to a person that is not necessarily from the area and is not an American.
Right.
Most of the people in Lawrence, based on the latest statistic, are not necessarily eating typical American food. And that's the reality. But every system is telling us how to eat if you eat that way. Essentially, that's been a challenge to a lot of us, to a point that every time that you go to somebody, to a professional that tell you, this is how much you need to, how much calories you need to eat, this is how much protein you need to be on your plate, that's basically taking away things that you eat on a daily basis, and that's setting you up for failure.
So we've in the past tried to address some of that. We've looked at culture and food and the role that culture plays in how we eat and what we eat. And so that's some of the education that we're going to be doing with our resident advisory group, understanding where we're from, what we eat, and why we ate how we ate back home, and how that impacts us now. Because if you grew up in your parents' place of origin, the foods that they ate in the mornings was because they were going to the field. So it's really important that we understand why our foreparents ate the way they ate, why that culture came down to us, and why it's different. It's recommended that we eat differently now because we're not as active. We're not doing long hours in the field anymore. So to change behaviors, you have to educate people about those things. So we're with our resident task force, we're gonna be teaching them about, culture and food and all of that, so that they have a better understanding. So when they're talking to their peers in the community, they can have those conversations as well. We've also talked about, we don't get plátanos. They're not grown here. They're imported. And when you start looking at systems like the recommendations through the Department of Agriculture, foods that are sold in farmers market have to be grown locally. So you're never gonna get plátanos in the farmers market because they're not grown locally. So looking back at systems and how we arrive at where we are, and can we change anything, can we impact anything, but really having the residents understand some of those historical contexts in terms of where we are now. And then we'll figure out where do we go from here.
Yeah, well, essentially, people have figured it out. And if you go to the supermarket in Lawrence, they don't look like any other supermarket around, because the business is telling them this is basically what you're going to be selling. Until we figure that out, we're going to be having, a lot of different resources being spent, but not be able to have success with the community, because every time that you confront with a professional, they take things away instead of just accommodate and be able to understand the spectrum of that specific food that you're eating, and not necessarily telling you this is bad or this is good. Instead, they need to make sure that understanding that product will bring some benefit if you eat it this way, that way, and the other way, but not necessarily taking it away. Because otherwise you're gonna have people not following what we want, because we want an ideal system, and that system not necessarily work in a way that is gonna be beneficial for the community.
Right.
So having that sensitive culture factor involved on any type of program that you guys develop is essential and a key component to if you wanna be successful. Essentially, that have to happen.
Yep, we've been having those conversations and looking at how we can prepare things differently. So there'll be those conversations that we have. Again, we have to bring our resident advisory group members now up to speed to where we are, and then be able to have some more of those discussions in community, because we still need to understand what are some of the challenges with the community to be able to move forward in an impactful way.
And I also would like to see at some point that the little plastic plate that they have.
Which one?
Every time that they have nutritional classes, they have this little plate that they show people. That doesn't work around, at least around my family. If you want success, you need to kind of like recreate those little plates around the cultural sensitivity and be able to bring those products that actually people eat, not necessarily what are on those little plastic plates that doesn't work. I hate those big time.
Okay.
And I understand that the community needs that type of information. Because, I mean, if you look at it, you know, diabetes and all those bad illness are up there, and they are eating out our community, basically. If we don't do something in regard to that, we're essentially going to be losing a lot of people because we're not doing what we need to do. But anybody that going to come to the city of Lawrence and use funds available to the community need to have that cultural sensitivity and be able to understand those products and the full spectrum of that product before they even advise anybody. Otherwise, it's setting up us to failure.
So, I hear that. Catherine Sands, who heads the Fertile Ground Group, she also works in the community of Springfield. So she's also done some work in other Mass in Motion communities. So she's well aware of the history, how history and culture plays into food. But again, we'll be having these conversations hopefully with a good number of community residents. And so they can help to inform our actions moving into FY24. So more to come on that.
To the exercise portion of it, how you guys are planning on? You guys are planning on partnering with other organizations in terms of exercising, or you just gonna work with this organization and be able to accomplish both tasks, the food and the exercising?
So for the other piece, the other pieces that we proposed was really to look at equity in park usage, and not necessarily doing exercise, but how are people using parks and is it being distributed equitably? So it's looking at what we're doing with Safe Routes to School. We're working very closely with the Lawrence Public Schools. We've developed maps for each middle and high and elementary school. And we'll be using those maps again to do public engagement, to talk about, you know, active transportation. How do you get from one place to the next? How are you getting safely to and from school as a student? And having conversation with parents, listening to them, hearing what their hesitations are about having their kids walk to school, walk to and from school in different kinds of weather. So those are this whole year will be about engaging with community, listening to what their concerns are, and then having them lead us on acting on those concerns so that we can be more impactful in our responses to their concerns.
All right. Thank you so much. Please keep me posted because I'm interested in both topics.
Oh, we will be engaging you,
Thank
Councillor.
Ms. Miller,
Sir.
one of the things that would be interesting is I think that there are plenty of individuals that want to eat healthy and do have, you know, because when you go to like there's certain places that you can go where you can get fresh products. Like there's certain convenience stores here in Lawrence that I think do a really good job in ensuring that there's constantly, you know, at least fresh vegetables and, you know, things that folks use. I think one of the things that is sometimes difficult is like learning how to cook certain things like the right way. And folks like learning recipes. You know, sometimes it is easier to do, especially when you come home from work, to do what you've been doing since you were in your teens, than start recreating and trying to get like the right recipe there. Yeah, so maybe that's something that you guys are already planned, but I definitely would advise all of you that maybe it's on YouTube, maybe there's, you know, I'm sure that there's multiple ways to be able to teach people, you know, have one of these, the chefs from Lawrence, you know, from one of these restaurants, provide like a little short seminar or something. I don't know, there might be some interesting things that can be done there that folks would attend, and a way for that spread. But thank you for this work. I think it's very important. Councilors, is there any other motion?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Mr. Chairman.
A question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When does the program is going to start?
So we've been doing a little bit of back work because it's summer, people are out, but we're hoping to really get started in September when people are back from vacation and in the community. And so we're hoping, we've started working with the partnering agencies to think about who they would like who are they working with that could be part of our advisory group. And talking about what are some of the plans, what are some of the things that we want to do to get engaged and to get the work started. But so the work itself will start full-fledged in September when people are back from vacation and have settled in after school.
It is possible for you to send information to us?
Absolutely.
Council, is there a motion?
Motion to approve and send it to the full council with favor recommendation.
There's a motion to send to the full council with favor recommendation. It's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. We are now looking at item 284-22, order to expand grant funds project U54 8,000. Ms. Miller?
Thank you for that. So this was a typo. It should say up to 48,000. It's a 5-year grant. It was a typo in the request that was sent to Damaris.
In the memo of understanding, it says 8,000.
But it's per year.
8,000 per year?
Yes.
So it's for 5 years?
Yes.
Oh, for 6 years.
So if you look at the bottom of the memo of understanding, it's delineated how the payments will go. It should be on your first page, I think. Do you see it at the bottom?
No. So we have, the system, so Baba Station is 8,000 per year.
Right.
Following the execution of this MOU to the MHTF for conducting study activities as part of the project. And it says provide 4 year with a stipend of $300 per meeting.
Right. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, so it looks like, is it more? Because there's 8,000. So 300 per meeting, and then.
But the stipends you only get if you do those activities, which is why I said up to.
How many years again?
It's 5. It's
6 years. Or 5 years?
5. It's 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
So that's 40,000. And then there's.
It's 1,200 per year if we attend all the meetings.
A potential extra 1,000 per year, which would bring it to 45. And then there's another 1,000 per year for hosting a summer intern, which brings it to 50,000. And then there's 300 per meeting. And how many meetings?
It's quarterly, but we've missed some of the meetings, which is why I subtracted.
Yep, so potentially that's 20 meetings, right?
No, we've missed some of the meetings. I've missed some of the meetings, so I subtracted that from what I just gave you.
Okay,
So the stipends for the meetings is only if you attend.
right, no, I understand.
Okay.
So right now, so you said 48, but right now we have 50,000.
Did I not calculate that properly?
Without including the 300 per meeting stipend. So we have.
Okay, what did I tell you?
8,000 per year.
No, what was my total, what is my, sorry, 58,000. I'm sorry.
That makes more sense.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm not that, I was trying to best at that, but there's some thousands here.
I'm sorry.
All right, so this should.
But it's up to. Yeah.
So this should say, yeah, so we'll say 58,000. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council with a fair recommendation and discussion.
Second.
And you said with discussion? Go ahead, Counselor.
So, are you the recipient of the grant?
Yes.
Okay.
And Counselor, and your motion was to, yes, send it to,
8,000.
for 58, if we can just make sure that we put that down, that it's order to expend grant funds, project U54, up to 58,000.
For the next 5 years.
Over 5 years.
Great. So the motion's been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, for all the work that you do. We are moving on to item 285-22. Allow the expenditure from the Department of Energy Resources Green Communities Competitive Grant Program, energy conservation measures at City Hall and school, $199,600.
Good evening, committee, councilors. Dan McCarthy, City of Lawrence, Acting Planning Director from 12 Methuen Street. We're here to request the appropriation, expropriation and expenditure of $197,000. I had it right in front of me. $199,996 for upgrades. No?
So we have, I mean, it could be that our information is wrong. What we have is 199,600.
600. Yeah, that's, I have that too, but I have a different. That is a typo. It is actually $199 and $199,996.
All right.
That's the actual amount. So this money is conservation, energy-saving improvements that are going to be made to several buildings within the city. The majority of this money is going into the South Lawrence East School to upgrade certain portions of the infrastructure, particularly the HVAC system. They're going to be putting in new controls to get rid of they're going to convert from pneumatic thermostats to digital thermostat systems. They're also going to be installing variable frequency drives, which control the motors for the AC systems and regulate that aspect of it, so that the schools will be have a modern system of air conditioning and heating. Also, they're going to improve the LED lighting in that building. A smaller portion of this money will be going to replace some of the steam controls in City Hall. So that's
Some of the what, I'm sorry?
steam controls for the heating system in the City Hall. So they'll go to upgraded digital devices rather than the manual controls.
Mr. McCarthy, if possible, my question was going to be, how is this money being spent? If you could just make sure that by the next council meeting, there's something on paper that says just what you just stated, so we can include it as part of the package.
It should have been included in this package, and it wasn't. It mentions that. I'll make sure that document is included. It's a one-page document with a breakdown of where the expenditures go.
Perfect. My next question, that we, of schools, why South Lawrence East?
We're moving through the schools right now systematically. This is the 5th year in a row that we've done upgrades using these competitive grants from the Green Communities. We've been a member of the Green Communities now for 6 years. As part of that, we had to adopt certain ordinances and practices to improve our savings. As a result of that, we get these, we get to participate in these programs with the state through the Department of Energy and the Green Communities Group. So every year we receive this money. We've just finished putting in new furnaces at the Frost School as part of this program. We've done other work in some of the other schools, and in October, we'll be probably submitting a grant for upgrades to more schools. We also have about $3 million in other funding coming, which is available for that. But we currently have the administration has hired a consultant to work with the planning department in looking to getting an energy audit to find out which buildings.
That's a Neil or something?
Anil, yes. Anil.
Mr. McCarthy, you mentioned a few schools that you said we've used this grant for. What were those schools again?
The Frost is the last one. We just completed a project at the Frost. Yes, the Frost.
To your knowledge, has there been any work done at the Arlington School?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. I know we have folks from the school department here. Do you guys happen to know? That's fine if you.
It's not just
so.
school.
So this is what I would say.
Yep.
For the past several years, there have been, especially during hot days, the Arlington School is not bearable. Yes. You know, I don't know how to explain it more than that. I think you have to experience it.
Yep.
It's one of these things that, as hot as it is, there are days where it is extremely hot outside. Inside the school, it's even hotter. And you have, throughout the hallways, you have teachers set up these, for lack of a better word, I'm saying bins, but these coolers almost that you use at like football games. And they're set up all throughout the hallways so that folks can always have like cold water. That's just, you know, we live in America, and you would think that we'd be able to provide the type of infrastructures for our kids to actually be able to study. The Arlington School is also in the poorest neighborhood, not just in this city, but you know, I would say probably has the biggest concentration of poverty, you know, in the North Shore, if not, you know, the whole New England. I'd be interested to know what is being done in that school, and hope that. Well, I see Ms. Hernandez. Yes, go ahead. Thank you. If you can just state your name and title for the record.
Sure. Good evening, councilors. Odanis Hernandez. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Lawrence Public Schools. The green communities, it's the funds, from my understanding, then they're around the same amount, about $199,000. So the South Lawrence East, it's part of a partnership that the Director of Facilities and others meet with other folks from City Hall. And the South Lawrence East was identified because it already had the HVAC, and it was just upgrading different systems. So it was upgrading. The other schools were part of the assessment through the house doctors that were done a few years ago when the members of the LAE called for an assessment of all of our buildings during the pandemic. And that's the strategy that we are moving forward in terms of the Lawrence Public Schools working in collaboration with City Hall to continue to address the deficiencies or the needs for HVAC or other things in some of our school buildings. Hence why the Frost was one of the schools that was identified, because it had partial AC but didn't have AC in others. But it's part of the work, and I'm not sure that that situation is going to be identified or resolved with just the green communities, but it's definitely something that we can continue to collaborate on. But I will make sure, Mr. McCarthy, that we provide the list of other schools that we have worked through this grant.
Yeah, so I definitely would like that information. You know, what I'll say is, you know, as an at-large counselor, every time that we do anything in the city, you know, it's a win. The Frost School was my alma mater. You know, I think folks in that neighborhood have been fighting for AC in decades. I think it's great that we finally were able to provide that. But I do think that other residents, other families in the city, what they're going to be looking at is great. So 2 of the major schools that have that we're doing work on, they're all in South Lawrence. What are we doing in the north? So I think that that's just something that we need to be cognizant of. And if there is, whatever that logic is, and I think I'd better understand that logic once I understands the particular of like a school like the Arlington. So whatever that logic is, I think needs to be explained, and the situation at that school needs to be explained as well. So hopefully in the future, we'll get there. I think that there were folks that had other questions. Councilor Rodriguez?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Essentially, we've been keep on seeing funds coming in and how the city invests those funds. And systematically, we keep on increasing the disparities between the community. This is a great example. We have the system already, let's improve it. We have this system or a system that is partially on, let's keep on improving it. What about the other schools that have nothing? What about the other locations? Because it's not only the schools. The other locations that we're struggling with different things, perhaps parks. We keep on seeing funds coming in, and we keep on looking how those funds are being spent. But we, as a community, as a city, we keep on promoting what we keep on telling others that we shouldn't be doing, which is to decrease the disparity at the school. We keep on hearing, since I was part of the school committee, reduce the gap achievement, and so many programs between how we should reduce the achievement gap. But we keep producing those gaps between one school and another school systematically by investing those funds where we already have something and forget about the other students or the other kids or the other member of the community that have nothing. We are systematically increasing those disparities that we keep on telling many others that we shouldn't be doing, and criticizing other part of government when they do that, when they don't do something related to reduce the achievement gap or perhaps reduce the disparities between one side and another side. Systematically, we're doing it in Lawrence, and that's wrong. I'm voting yes on this because at the end of the day, it is funds that are going to go to a Laurentian. But this is wrong completely. And we keep on looking how we're spending these type of funds and parks funds as well. Because definitely, I'm very, very upset with that. But anyway, let's keep on voting yes. That's the only thing that I can say.
Councilor De Rosario?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can do anything, we cannot do anything to change the system that you guys have set up for this. And again, I'm going to ask you the question, why the South Lawrence East, if they already have something implemented? I'm a district councilor for District C, which, according to everybody's numbers, is the poorest district in the city. And for years before I got elected, I see the same pattern. The same pattern. And what I think we should do, honestly, the city should do, is go back to whoever picked the school or whoever picked the places where they're going to spend the funds. Mr. McCarthy comes here, basically, would it be daily meetings? Would it be here on a daily basis? And if you see the pattern, the funds go to the same place all the time. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm assuming that whoever assessed where we're going to work is to decide where they're going to work. But are we actually focusing on the needs, the actual needs on schools, where they really need it? It was implemented there, great. But the Arlington school doesn't have even AC. So we're not gonna try anything on the Arlington school because they don't have anything. So this $199,996, we can just implement it here. And another thing, I'm gonna bet you that those contracts that is gonna be there working in that school, only one person from Lawrence might be working there too. And that's the pattern that we've been seeing. We've been dividing the city for many years. The poorest to the richest or whatever, by zip code. And it's unacceptable. Again, we cannot change whatever's here. I wish we could and tell you, take this paper back, and now we're not gonna vote yes on this, and it's not gonna go to the South Lawrence East. And we can't do anything. You guys picked. You guys don't even make us part of it. And you guys picked whatever you're gonna spend the money on it. We're just good here to say yes on this. But we're not counting or accountable. Gregory, in your district, what do you think we need? No, Gregory, you gotta vote yes, because it's already approved, the funds. And this is the school that we picked. But in the school, when the school year starts, you're gonna see all the complaints in the Arlington school, as you've been seeing it throughout the years, and nothing has been done. And once again, it's unacceptable.
Councilor Levy.
Is there any plans, like by the end of the school, just to go school by school and make it some, to review and check on that, to find
Yes,
what is the problem for each
that's
school?
what I was mentioning earlier, that the current plan now is to use some of the money expenditure to, can you hear, I can't hear you.
Okay.
So the plan right now is, and I mentioned this earlier, is to use some of the money now to do what's called an energy audit. And we'll go through the city. We've already had meetings with the officials from the school department, the city building department. This money hasn't just gone to schools, it's gone to fire departments, it's gone into the library, it's gone into a number of municipal buildings in the city. So this is a project to conserve energy citywide, not just for through the school system. The audit will go uniformly in through the buildings that the city has, inventorying them, to see which ones can be used the money and which ones we can invest other monies in. We're talking about $199,000, and it may seem like a large sum, but in the scheme of making some of these repairs, talking about building schools like the Arlington, which are almost 40 years old, that these are insignificant in that. We're looking to do large-scale expenditures on the Oliver School and the Leahy School, replacing those completely. So I will assure you that the Arlington School will be a major portion of our